recently came upon a little story in a book I was reading. It went like this. There was a little girl who had a disease that required a blood transfusion. Her blood type was rare, and time was running out to find her a donor. And her big brother, still a child himself, was a match for her blood type. And although he was far too young to donate blood, of course, being big brother, he volunteered to help his sister. But no sooner had the young boy volunteered himself than he began to cry. And the doctors asked him what was wrong, and not understanding how blood donation works, of course, being just a little boy, he spoke through his tears, "How long will it take me to die? How long will it take me to die?" A boy ready to give everything out of love. Now, is this a true story? Maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know. But I'll tell you what is a true story. Jesus on the cross, right? That's a true story. Let me ask you a question. When Jesus was crucified, what did he hold back? What did he hold back? When Jesus was mounted upon the wood of the cross for our salvation, as a sacrificial offering for us, what did he keep for himself? The answer, of course, is nothing. There's no such thing as being half crucified, right? You can't hang from the cross with your feet still touching the ground. You can't have your blood poured out as an offering for all of humanity while still keeping enough in your veins to keep your own heart pumping. When Jesus died for us, and indeed he did, he gave everything. His flesh and blood was crucified on the cross. Even his divinity is crucified on the cross. There's nothing at all held back in love. And one of the questions to ask certainly is, what did I do to deserve that? What did you do to deserve that act of love? Well, nothing, right? If anything, we're the ones who put him there. Every sin, a nail in his flesh, every act of selfishness or rebellion, a scourge against his skin. I once heard of a story of a priest who was asked if he had ever heard someone confess the sin of murder in the confessional. "Oh yes," he said, every single day I hear someone confess the sin of murder, because every sin that has ever been confessed, both big and small, contributed to that. Every sin put Jesus on the cross. And yet, of course, he goes there willingly, not out of resentment, not with anger and rage that he has to do this thing for us, but completely of his own will, out of love for us, prepared to empty out everything for us, prepared to be like that big brother in the story who drains his every last drop of blood for the sick who need a transfusion. And indeed, we are those sick people in need of a transfusion. That's what Jesus offers us. That is our belief as Catholics. The question then is, what are we willing to offer him in return? The psalmist asks that question as well, right? What shall I offer the Lord in return for the goodness that he has given me? And today we have a gospel reading that I think seeks to answer that question too. The story of the poor old widow and the two small coins. It's a fascinating story because it has absolutely nothing to do with how much this woman gave and everything to do with how much she kept. And the answer of how much she kept for herself is, of course, the same answer as how much Jesus kept for himself, which is nothing. We hear in the story that she's a widow. That, I don't know if that quite resonates with us the way it should, because to be a widow in today's day and age is certainly different than to be a widow at the time of Jesus. To be a widow in the time of Jesus was to be, in many ways, helpless. Women did not have careers and occupations. They did not earn money. They were dependent completely upon the wage earning of their husbands. So what this widow gave was all she had stored away. There was no simply going out and reacquiring it. There was no regenerating it. There was no conditional hope that, well, if I put some in, it will somehow be multiplied and given back to me, and I'll be rewarded for what I'm doing. No, it was in every way a full outpouring of the very thing that was keeping her alive. Yes, the other people came to the treasury and offered more, probably much more, right? Many, many times more than this widow. But again, Jesus has no concern about what is offered, only about what is retained. Jesus has no concern about what is offered, only what is retained. And the wealthy, we hear, retained much. And you can surmise why, right? You can surmise why, because every single one of us, whether we are rich or poor or somewhere in the middle, we can put ourselves in the position of those wealthy people in the gospel today. We can put ourselves in that mindset where we are constantly giving ourselves reasons as to why we shouldn't offer all we have, why we should hold something back. Well, maybe it's too scary. Maybe it's that insecure feeling I get when I really give a lot. That can be frightening. It's irresponsible to do something that drastic. It's too much of a risk. These are all the things that we may say to ourselves whenever we feel Jesus tugging on our heart, telling us to give more of ourselves to Him out of love. Those are the things, the roadblocks that we put up. And the question that we need to be asking ourselves as Catholics, not just today, but every day, it's the same question that's raised in the gospel. I think we do think a lot as Catholics about what we give. It's kind of ingrained into us, I think, right? Am I giving enough to the church? Am I tithing enough? Am I giving enough money? Am I giving enough time? Am I giving enough of my talent? Am I praying enough? Am I worshiping enough? Am I doing enough, right? Those are the questions I think we're constantly asking ourselves, and they're good questions, right? I would never say don't ask those questions. I think they're necessary questions, but they are nowhere near as important as this one question: what am I holding back? What am I holding back? Not what am I giving, but what am I not giving? What am I holding back from the Lord? I ask myself that question all the time. If I'm being honest with you, it's a question that haunts me every single day. In my bedroom back at the friary, I keep a crucifix laid on my pillow. And it's there such that when I go to bed at night, I actually have to pick it up and move it onto my end table. And I have to look at it. And I have to look at Jesus crucified on that cross at the end of every day. And I have to confront the fact that while He has given everything for me, every single drop of His blood for me, I've kept so much of myself, if not virtually all of myself, from Him. My attachments to sin, well, I've kept a lot of those, right? My desire to control my own schedule, my own free time, I've kept that for myself. My propensity for comfort and ease in my life, Lord, you can't have those. The false idols in which I'm so tempted to place try to find joy and fulfillment in my life, sports and movies and video games, and whatever, social media, praise, accolades. Jesus, don't touch those. Those are my lifeboats. I need those. Don't go near them. And that's what I have to say at the end of every day, if I'm being honest. And yet, He still loves me. He still loves me more than I can ever imagine. And while I do find great comfort and consolation in that, no doubt, I can never let that be a cause for my complacency. Because I truly believe this. The truest joy of mankind is in the pursuit of reciprocating the love that God gives us. How can we repay it? Well, in short, we can't, right? There's no amount of coins we can ever put in the treasury, so to speak, that will ever balance out that, right? You can't do it. You simply cannot do it. So the best we can do is to try to imitate it. We can love God who died for us by being a people who die for him. And not just, in dramatic ways, flesh and blood death, but in spirit, in will, the days that we are being called to be crucified every single day of our life. Every day we have that opportunity to pour out more of ourselves to the Lord, pour out something for the Lord that we've been keeping from him. Every day we have that opportunity to pour out our pride, our selfishness, our greed, our lust, our comfort, our sin, our control, so that we leave nothing for ourselves, every last bit of our blood drained out. And that can be scary, obviously. Sometimes I think, I stand up here and I say these things, and maybe we're just kind of numb to them, right? Oh, yes, I give myself to the Lord. I try to love him each and every day. I hope this is not just me droning. I hope this really strikes you. Going all in is scary. It's terrifying. It should be terrifying, right? We're not called to just be mediocre, complacent Catholics. The Lord is calling us to something absolutely crazy and dramatic every day of our lives. Pushing your chips into the middle of the table, knowing you've got nothing stashed away, is really intimidating. I get that. But that is what real love is. And in real love, I think, is true freedom. Think of when you were little. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. Think of when you were little riding your bike around, right? If you're like me, I started with my training wheels on. And I remember you ride on the training wheels and you kind of rock back and forth and you feel those training wheels, they're bouncing off the ground. And, I'd be out riding my bike around and I'd watch all the big kids on their bikes. Of course, no training wheels, and they're going 10 times faster than me, and they're going around the block and they're laughing and having a good time, wind in their hair. Think about in that moment, you with your training wheels, how you desired the type of freedom that you saw the big kids have, right? But out of fear, at least I'm speaking for myself, out of fear, I kept something back for my own safety. I kept something back because I was afraid, right? Even long past the time that I probably needed training wheels, I wanted to keep them on because I was afraid of what might happen if I took those wheels off. I think that we can become training wheels Catholics sometimes. God's greatest desire for us is to live in freedom, right? To hit the open road with the wind in our hair, living in that true selfless love that he desires for us. But instead, I find so many of us, and again, myself included, we kind of just putter around the parking lot with our training wheels on, rocking back and forth, watching the big kids zoom around, and we wonder, why is it that I can't go any faster? Why is it I can't go any faster? And our gospel today, I think, is about taking off those training wheels. You know in your heart, I can't tell you, but you know in your heart what you're holding back from the Lord. I know what I'm holding back from the Lord, certainly. We all know what we're holding back from the Lord. So ask him today in prayer. Be courageous. Really pray this prayer. I mean, this is intimidating stuff. Ask the Lord, Lord, help me to let go. Help me to get rid of my safety precautions. Help me to shed my comfort, my protection, and help me to trust. Help me to trust that I'm not going to fall. Help me to trust. Help me to trust that there is freedom in sacrifice, that there is freedom in love, and give me the courage to imitate that love all the days of my life.